My brothers and sisters, have you ever wondered, am I on the path Allah wants for me? Sometimes life becomes confusing. You're doing your best, but you're still unsure. Is this what Allah wants? Is this truly guidance? Let me share with you 7 powerful signs that Allah is guiding you and leading you to what is best for you, even if you don't see it clearly right now. One of the most powerful and perhaps surprising signs that Allah is guiding you is when you begin to feel uncomfortable with your sins. This shift doesn't always happen suddenly, and it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it begins subtly, like a whisper in the heart, a quiet heaviness after something you used to do without thinking twice. Where once you might have spoken harshly to someone and moved on without regret, now you feel a sting of remorse. Where you once engaged in actions that displeased Allah without much reflection, now you feel a sense of unease, a quiet voice inside you asking, was that really the right thing to do? This internal discomfort, this sense of guilt or restlessness after sin is not a sign that you've become weak. It's actually a sign that your heart is still alive, still connected to its creator, still receptive to divine light. This feeling of being unsettled after doing something wrong is one of the greatest gifts Allah can place in a person's heart. It's a spiritual sensitivity, a kind of built-in compass, and not everyone has it. When Allah wants good for someone, He allows them to see their mistakes clearly, and more importantly, to feel their weight, not to crush them, but to soften them, to help them turn back before the heart becomes hardened and silent. You see, the real danger in life is not in committing sins. Sins are part of being human. Even the most righteous people, even the prophets made mistakes, but they turned back to Allah. The true danger lies in becoming comfortable with those sins. When the heart stops reacting to disobedience, when guilt fades away and a person feels no need to seek forgiveness, that's when the soul is in real trouble. That's when the heart becomes veiled, covered over by layers of heedlessness, and the person may continue down a path that leads further and further away from Allah, all while thinking everything is fine. But when you feel guilt, when you feel the pain of regret, even if you keep slipping up, that's a sign that Allah is still guiding you. It means your heart still recognizes truth. It still wants to return. And that desire to return is a light in itself. Don't ignore it. Don't push it away out of shame. Use it. Sometimes we think that because we sin, Allah must be angry with us, that we're no longer worthy of being guided. But that's not true. In fact, the ability to feel guilt, to sincerely say, I shouldn't have done that, and to make an effort to stop, is itself a response to divine mercy. Allah is giving you a window of opportunity. He's giving you a reminder. He's reaching out to you through your conscience, and He's inviting you gently but firmly to come back. It's easy to feel unworthy when we slip again and again. Shaitan takes advantage of our regret and tries to turn it into despair. He whispers, you've messed up too many times. Don't bother asking for forgiveness anymore. But remember, that's not Allah speaking. That's the voice of hopelessness. And hopelessness has no place in the heart of a believer. If you ever find yourself crying over a mistake you made, or if your heart sinks after remembering a sin, even one from years ago, know that this is a sign of Allah's kindness. It's His way of keeping you close. It's His way of waking you up. And if you respond to that feeling with sincere repentance, with an honest conversation with Allah, even if it's just in your own language, in your own words, that moment could be more beloved to Allah than all the outward deeds you've done before. So don't see guilt as a burden. See it as a compass. See it as a sign that your Lord is still calling you, still opening the door, still giving you a chance, no matter how many times you've fallen. The Prophet once said that the one who repents sincerely from sin is like one who never sinned at all. That's how vast and welcoming the mercy of Allah truly is. Guidance doesn't always come with lights and dreams and miracles. Sometimes it comes as a quiet discomfort after doing something you used to enjoy. Sometimes it comes as tears in the silence of the night. Sometimes it's that moment when you sit with your head down, ashamed of yourself, but determined to change. That is the beginning of a guided heart. Another beautiful and deeply personal sign that Allah is guiding you is when your heart begins to feel a quiet pull towards the prayer, towards the Qur'an, towards remembrance. It's not always loud, it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it begins as a small thought in the back of your mind, I should pray now. Other times it's a strange desire to hear the words of Allah, even if you don't understand every verse. It's a moment of stillness in a chaotic day where your soul just wants to connect. This isn't something that just happens randomly. It's not a coincidence. It's not your own doing. This is Allah softening your heart and drawing you closer to Him in the most gentle way. You see, when Allah loves someone, He opens the door to worship. And one of the greatest forms of worship is salah, the 5 daily prayers. It's not just a ritual. It's a divine appointment between you and your Creator. So when you find yourself wanting to pray, even if you're struggling to do it on time or perfectly, that desire itself is a sign. It means that something inside you is waking up. The soul is remembering its source. The heart is longing for the peace that can only come from being in conversation with Allah. Think about it. The world is full of distractions. There are endless things pulling us away from remembrance. And yet, you feel a strange pull to pause and bow down. In the middle of life's noise, you feel this quiet urge to find a prayer mat, to raise your hands and say, Oh Allah, I need you. That's not just a thought. That's guidance. That's love. That's divine mercy reaching your heart. And it doesn't stop with salah. You might find yourself wanting to open the Qur'an, not because someone told you to, but because your heart craves it. Even if you read slowly, even if you don't understand everything, there's a sense of comfort in just reciting. The words feel familiar, they feel safe. That's not just literature, that's your soul recognizing the words of its maker. Many people think that being guided means suddenly becoming religious overnight, but that's not how it works for most. Guidance often comes in quiet waves. You start noticing that skipping a prayer doesn't feel right anymore. You miss Fajr and your heart feels uneasy all day. You walk past your Qur'an on the shelf and something inside you says, why don't you open it today? These moments may seem small, but they are incredibly significant. One of the names of Allah is Al-Hadi, the one who guides. And part of that guidance is that He makes you want to come closer to Him. That's the starting point. That desire to do better, that inclination towards prayer, that sudden interest in Islamic reminders, all of it is Allah guiding your heart step by step. It doesn't mean you're perfect. In fact, most of the time when people start feeling this way, they're still struggling. They miss prayers, they sin, they slip. But the difference is that now they care. Now they feel something, they're trying. And that effort, that struggle is more beloved to Allah than we can ever imagine. So if you've noticed yourself recently being pulled towards salah, don't ignore it. If your heart feels comfort when you hear the Qur'an, don't brush it off. That is your soul responding to guidance. That is your Creator calling you home. And every time you respond, every time you pray, every time you open that book, you are walking a path that leads to peace, to purpose, and to Allah's pleasure. Never underestimate the power of being drawn toward worship. In a world that constantly tries to distract us from our Creator, if your heart still turns toward Him, even for a few moments a day, that is not weakness. That is a sign that you are being guided, watched over, and loved. One of the more subtle yet very powerful signs that Allah is guiding you is when you start losing interest in the things that once distracted you from Him. This doesn't always happen in a dramatic way. Often it begins quietly. Things you used to enjoy, the places, the conversations, the content, the company, slowly stop bringing the same kind of satisfaction. They don't fill you like they used to. They feel empty, maybe even pointless. That shift in your heart, that discomfort in places you once felt comfortable, that's not just emotional change, it's a spiritual realignment. It's Allah pulling your heart away from distractions so you can make space for His remembrance. You see, the world is full of things designed to steal your attention. endless entertainment, superficial friendships, mindless scrolling, gossip, materialism. It all numbs the soul while keeping you busy, and for a while you might not even notice. You think it's harmless, you tell yourself, I'm just passing time. But when Allah begins to guide you, He doesn't just point you toward what's good, He also begins to detach you from what is harmful, even if it doesn't look harmful on the surface. That's how gentle His guidance is. He changes your taste before changing your habits. He makes the dunya feel bitter, so you start longing for something sweeter, and that sweetness is in His remembrance. You might start noticing that you can no longer enjoy certain conversations. Backbiting feels ugly, and your soul feels heavy afterwards. You may sit in gatherings or environments that once excited you, but now you feel out of place. You open certain apps or watch certain shows, and afterward, instead of satisfaction, you feel regret, a kind of internal restlessness. That discomfort is a sign, not a punishment, not anxiety. It's Allah nudging you away from what harms your heart and toward what heals it. And here's something important to understand. When Allah wants to bring you closer to Him, He sometimes removes things from your life that you thought were good for you. You may lose friendships that were filled with gossip or negativity. You may suddenly feel uninterested in worldly conversations. You may even start questioning how you're spending your time, something that never used to bother you before. This process can feel lonely. It can even feel confusing. You might ask, why don't I enjoy the same things anymore? Or, why do I feel so distant from the people around me? But in truth, this is one of the most precious stages of spiritual growth. When Allah clears your space so He can fill it with something better. He removes distractions to make room for connection. Think of it like a person recovering from unhealthy food. At first, the healthy options might seem bland. You may crave what you were used to. But as your system adjusts, you start to appreciate purity. Similarly, when your heart begins to leave behind the noise and distractions of the world, it starts craving peace, sincerity, and the remembrance of Allah. So if you've started losing interest in things that waste your time, harm your heart, or pull you away from your Deen, don't panic. Don't see it as something wrong with you. See it as a sign of your heart being purified. See it as Allah protecting your time, your energy, and your soul. Because when Allah guides you, He doesn't just add light, He also removes darkness. And sometimes that means pulling you out of places you never realized were dimming your faith. This is a moment to be grateful, even if it feels uncomfortable. Because what comes next, once the noise fades away, is clarity, is peace, is nearness to the one who never distracts, never disappoints, and always delivers, Allah. When you begin to lose interest in what once consumed your time, the meaningless conversations, the excessive entertainment, the environments that distract more than they nourish, you are not becoming antisocial. You are not boring. You are not falling behind in life. In reality, your heart is simply being reoriented toward its true purpose. And that shift often comes quietly, even without you realizing it. Allah, in His mercy, is slowly turning your gaze inward, helping you see the difference between noise and nourishment, between temporary pleasure and lasting peace. That growing discomfort with distraction is not random. It's a deeply spiritual process. You may find that the things which once made you laugh now leave you feeling drained. The gatherings that once excited you now feel heavy, even pointless. You begin to crave depth over amusement, sincerity over entertainment, solitude over noise. At first, it may feel like you're losing part of your identity, especially if you built your lifestyle around these distractions. But in truth, you are not losing yourself. You are finding your true self, the one that was always meant to live with purpose, with presence, with remembrance of the Creator. And yes, this journey can feel isolating. Friends may not understand. You might feel like you no longer fit in. But this disconnection is not a sign of spiritual failure. It's a sign of elevation. Allah is refining your circle. He's narrowing your environment. Because sometimes, in order to protect you, He must distance you from what was never meant to be part of your long-term path. And here's something deeply beautiful. As you detach from these distractions, your soul begins to breathe again. You may find joy in silence, peace in prayer, satisfaction in simplicity. You begin to see life more clearly, how precious time is, how fleeting this world is, how generous your Lord has always been. You may even find that your energy starts to return, mental, emotional, even physical energy, because so much of what distracted you was also draining you. And as those burdens fall away, you begin to feel lighter, clearer, more focused. But here's the key, don't force yourself into a mold. Guidance is a process, not a performance. Some days you'll feel strong, deeply connected. Other days you may feel distant again. That's okay. The point is not perfection. The point is awareness. Once you've begun to recognize what no longer serves your soul, you've already stepped into the light of guidance. So don't grieve the things you're leaving behind. If they were meant for your growth, they would still serve you. Instead, thank Allah. Because in a world where distraction is everywhere, if He has given you the clarity to step back, reflect, and seek Him more, that is a sign that you are among the guided. And that clarity, that pull away from distraction is not the end. It's just the beginning, and the beginning of a deeper, more meaningful relationship with your Creator, one that no worldly pleasure can replace. One of the most misunderstood signs of Allah's guidance is this: when He begins to guide you, life doesn't necessarily become easier. In fact, it might become harder. This confuses many people. You try to turn your life around, you start praying, you give up old habits, you distance yourself from negative influences. And just when you expect things to get better, they don't. In fact, you may face more hardship, more emotional struggle, more unexpected trials than ever before. And deep down, you might wonder, I'm trying so hard to do the right thing. Why is Allah testing me now? But here's the truth, my brothers and sisters. Being tested is not a sign that you're far from Allah. It is often a sign that you are coming closer to Him. When Allah loves someone, He prepares them, He strengthens them. And the path to strength is not comfort, it's struggle. Just like muscles grow under resistance, your faith grows when you are tested. And Allah, in His infinite wisdom, tests those whom He wants to raise to higher levels. The Prophet, the most beloved to Allah, faced the most severe tests. He lost children. He was insulted, boycotted, threatened, driven out of his home, wounded in battle, and yet he remained patient, optimistic, and full of trust in Allah. So don't mistake your hardship for abandonment. In fact, it could be the opposite. It may be that your trial is a sign of divine attention, a form of purification, a means through which Allah draws you closer, wipes away your past sins, and builds your reliance on Him alone. Sometimes these tests shake us. A loved one falls ill, a job is lost, a relationship breaks, a secret struggle becomes overwhelming. In those moments, Shaitan whispers, "Where is your Lord now? You've been praying, haven't you? You've changed, and this is your reward." But remember, these whispers are lies meant to separate you from the one who is in fact holding you up during the storm. Allah never promised that life would be easy, but He did promise that He would never leave you. And when He tests you, it's not to punish you, it's to wake you up, to reshape your priorities, to draw your heart away from relying on the creation and back to relying fully on the Creator. Think about this. When do most people turn to Allah with sincerity? Not when everything is going perfectly, but when they are broken, when they've tried everything else, when they are desperate for answers. That's when hearts become humble. That's when tongues begin to sincerely pray. That's when people remember how near Allah truly is. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this: when you go through hardship while on the path to Allah, every moment of pain is counted, every tear is seen, every silent prayer is heard. Even your exhaustion, your sleepless nights, your heavy heart, it's all being recorded, all being rewarded. Nothing is wasted with Allah. In fact, the Prophet taught us that the believers' affairs are always good. If something pleasant happens, they're grateful, and that's good for them. And if something difficult happens, they're patient, and that too is good for them. This is the unique blessing of faith, that even pain has purpose. So if you're going through hardship after you've started changing your life for the better, don't doubt yourself. Don't assume Allah is displeased with you. On the contrary, it may be a powerful sign that you are on the exact path you are meant to be on. The difficulty is not a detour, it's part of the journey. And Allah is watching over you the entire way. He is shaping you, purifying you, and preparing you for something greater, something eternal. Hold on to Him. Keep praying, keep trusting. Even if the road is steep, know that the destination is peace. And Allah never burdens a soul more than it can bear. So when Allah tests you after you begin to walk toward Him, do not see it as rejection, see it as refinement. Because sometimes Allah will test your intentions to make sure your faith is real. He will test your patience to make sure your heart is sincere. He will test your reliance to teach you that there is no one who can help, heal, or provide like Him. And when you remain firm, even while hurting, even while unsure, even while broken, that's when your connection with Allah becomes something unshakable. In fact, sometimes the darkest chapters of your life are what open the door to your brightest guidance. You go through hardship and it forces you to reevaluate your life. You cry in secret, and for the first time in years, your tears fall before your Lord. You lose something or someone, and that pain finally leads you to turn your face toward Allah and say, I need you. And that moment, that genuine raw moment of surrender might be the most powerful moment of your entire life. It's important to remember that ease isn't always a blessing, and difficulty isn't always a punishment. Sometimes constant comfort can distract us from our purpose, while hardship can lead us straight to the door of Allah. How many people lived years in heedlessness only to be awakened by one single test, one illness, one heartbreak, one failure, and suddenly their life turns around. They begin praying, they begin asking, they begin knowing Allah. If you're going through that phase right now, if life feels harder even as you try to become better, do not be disheartened. Guidance doesn't always come wrapped in ease. Sometimes it comes wrapped in struggle. And it's in those struggles that your soul is taught resilience, your character is polished, and your dependence shifts from this temporary world to the one who created it. You'll find that during trials, your du'as become more sincere. You stop rushing through your prayers. You cry more. You speak to Allah more. You ask for things not just with your tongue, but with your heart. That's not weakness. That's transformation. That's Allah turning you into someone stronger, someone purer, someone who no longer lives life asleep, but walks consciously in remembrance. And there's another gift hidden in trials: empathy. When you suffer, you understand others' pain in a way you never could before. You become softer, kinder. You see people with different eyes. And that too is part of guidance, because the path to Allah isn't just about praying more. It's also about becoming a better human being. So if you're hurting while trying to do the right thing, keep going. If you're praying but still struggling, keep praying. If you're repenting but still falling, keep repenting. Because every effort is seen, every moment is counted. And Allah in His perfect wisdom is molding you into someone who will look back one day and say, that trial didn't destroy me, it brought me to life. The tests will pass, the pain will fade, but the closeness to Allah that came through that journey, that will remain with you forever. You see, there is something incredibly profound about the soul that keeps turning back to Allah during difficulty. While anyone can praise Allah when life is smooth and blessings are pouring in, it takes a guided heart, a heart that is truly connected, to remain patient and hopeful when everything seems to be falling apart. It's in those moments when your chest feels tight, your plans are shattered, and your dua feels like the only thing you have left. That is when you're the closest to your Lord. That is when the angels are recording your every breath, your every tear, your every whispered plea. Allah Himself tells us that He is near to the one who calls upon Him. And how beautiful is it that when life closes every door in front of you, the door of Allah remains wide open. These tests, they're not random. Allah doesn't test you to see you break. He tests you to build you. to reveal your potential, to polish away the layers of self-reliance, ego, laziness, or heedlessness. So what remains is a servant who is humble, sincere, and fully aware of where strength actually comes from. Sometimes, the only way to truly know Allah as the most merciful is to experience moments when you're at your lowest and He lifts you. To truly believe He is the provider, you might have to face a moment when nothing else provides. To know He is the protector, you may have to walk through fear and still feel safe. This is why, for the believer, hardship is never wasted. It's never without meaning. Every difficulty you endure with patience becomes a seed of reward in the hereafter. Every sleepless night, every moment you held yourself back from complaining, every time you said Alhamdulillah through tears, all of it is known to Allah, and all of it is rewarded in ways we cannot even imagine. And sometimes you won't see the fruits of your sabr, your patience, right away. Sometimes it will feel like the test is stretching endlessly. You'll wonder when it will end, when the ease will come, when the relief you were promised will finally arrive. But remember, Allah never breaks His promise, and sometimes the relief doesn't just come after the trial, it comes through it. The way you grow, the way your heart turns to Allah, the wisdom you gain, the strength you never knew you had, that is relief, that is guidance, and perhaps, just perhaps, you'll reach a point where you look back at the most painful parts of your life and say, I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I wouldn't trade what it taught me for anything in this world. That level of growth, of faith, of connection, it doesn't come easily. It's built through trials. And if you're experiencing that now, know that you are walking a path that many of Allah's beloved have walked before you. The path of prophets, of the righteous, of those whom Allah chose to refine, not to punish. So be gentle with yourself in these moments. Keep your connection with Allah strong, even if your voice trembles. Keep your prayers consistent, even if your heart feels heavy. And know that every hardship you endure with patience is not just making you stronger. It's a sign that you are being prepared, being guided, being drawn closer to the most loving, the most wise. One of the most beautiful signs that Allah is guiding you and that your heart is waking up is when you begin to care deeply about how you spend your time, what you say, what you consume, and how your actions affect your relationship with Him. You start asking yourself questions you may never have considered before. Is this pleasing to Allah? Will I regret this on the day of judgment? What's the purpose of this habit, this conversation, this lifestyle I've adopted? This awareness doesn't arrive with a trumpet or a big announcement. It often comes quietly, like a seed planted in the heart. But once that seed takes root, you begin to feel its effects everywhere. You might start looking at your daily routine differently. Time that used to be lost in meaningless distractions suddenly feels precious. You begin to sense that every hour is an opportunity, not just to get through the day, but to build something eternal. You stop seeing Salah as a task to check off a list and start seeing it as a moment to recharge your soul. You begin organizing your day around your prayers rather than squeezing them between everything else. And what's happening here is something extraordinary. Allah is placing barakah in your time, but also purpose in your soul. That shift from mindless living to intentional worship is a sign of divine guidance. You also begin to notice how carefully you speak. Jokes that were once casual begin to feel inappropriate. You become more aware of backbiting, of sarcasm, of negativity in your speech. Why? Because you're no longer living just for today. You're thinking about your scroll of deeds. You're thinking about the people you might have hurt. You start to think before you speak, not out of fear of judgment from others, but out of concern for your accountability before Allah. Even your thoughts start to change. You reflect more. You begin to catch yourself in moments of pride, of anger, of envy, and instead of feeding those thoughts, you challenge them. You ask Allah to help you purify your heart. You recognize that the real battle isn't just what happens around you, but what happens within you. This kind of transformation doesn't happen because you read a quote or watched a lecture. It happens because Allah is guiding you, because He has placed spiritual maturity in your heart. And that maturity doesn't always mean you become outwardly perfect. It means you become inwardly honest. You're more aware of your flaws, more committed to improving, more conscious of the limited time you have in this world. You realize that this life isn't just about achievement, recognition, or material comfort. It's about preparing for a moment that everyone will face, the moment we return to our Creator. And once that realization becomes real to you, it changes everything. You no longer want to waste your nights numbing your heart with distractions. You don't want to sleep through Fajr like you used to. You're not interested in being around company that drags your soul downward. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. It's knowing that life is short and you don't want to lose your focus. And here's the beautiful thing, this care, this sensitivity, this growing discipline, it's not a burden. It's actually a mercy. It protects you. It keeps you spiritually awake in a world that's designed to keep you asleep. It ensures that when you stand before Allah on the day of judgment, you can at least say, I tried, I struggled, I cared. Because in the end, that's what matters most. Not perfection, but sincere effort. So if you've started to care more about your habits, your words, your time, your accountability, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if you're still learning, know that you are being guided. That's Allah working on your heart, refining your soul, preparing you for something far greater than this world can offer. This awareness is not self-imposed pressure, it's spiritual elevation, and it's a gift worth holding on to with everything you have. One of the clearest signs that Allah is guiding you, truly guiding you, is when obedience no longer feels like a burden. It starts to feel like peace. You see, in the beginning, turning to Allah can feel hard. It might feel like sacrifice. You're letting go of habits you've carried for years. You're saying no to things that used to bring you comfort. You're trying to restructure your day around prayer, your thoughts around sincerity, your actions around taqwa. It's not easy, not because obedience is inherently difficult, but because you're unlearning what the world has taught you and relearning what your soul always knew, that you were made to submit to Allah. But then something begins to shift. You start to notice that the very things you once struggled with now feel grounding. You begin to look forward to Salah, not just because it's an obligation, but because it gives you a moment of quiet in a noisy world. You start reciting Qur'an, not because someone told you to, but because your heart genuinely longs to hear the words of your Creator. You begin choosing what pleases Allah, not out of fear alone, but out of love. A love that's growing with every sincere effort you make. That's guidance. It's when your soul starts to taste the sweetness of faith. When you begin to feel a sense of relief after doing what Allah loves, even if it comes with struggle. You lower your gaze, and instead of feeling restricted, you feel free. You give up a bad habit, and instead of feeling deprived, you feel dignified. You avoid a sinful environment, and instead of feeling excluded, you feel protected. That's the paradox of obedience. From the outside, it might look like you're giving things up, but on the inside, you're gaining more than you ever had before. You gain clarity, you gain stability, you gain a sense of purpose that the world could never give you, because you're no longer living for people's approval or your own ego or material achievements. You're living to please Allah, and that brings a type of peace that doesn't fade with circumstances. This peace isn't just emotional, it's spiritual alignment. Your heart, your mind, your body, they all begin to move in sync with your higher purpose, and suddenly you feel less conflicted. The guilt begins to fade, the confusion quiets down, your du'as become more honest, your thoughts become more pure, you begin to carry yourself with more humility, more calm, more awareness. And what's most amazing is that this peace doesn't come because your life becomes perfect. It comes because your heart finds contentment in submission. Even when you're tested, you're no longer as shaken. Even when things don't go your way, your first response is Alhamdulillah. Even when you sin, you're quick to seek forgiveness and get back up, because you know that obedience isn't about being flawless. It's about being faithful. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said that there is a sweetness in faith that only the believer tastes. And this is part of it. When Allah guides your heart to truly embrace obedience, it becomes a source of comfort, not conflict. You start wanting to do what's right, not just because you should, but because it feels right. You no longer ask, how much do I have to do to get by? But instead, how much more can I do to please Allah? That change in mindset, Shin, from obligation to devotion, from guilt to gratitude, is a gift. And it doesn't come from your own willpower alone. It's Allah placing sakina, tranquility, into your soul. It's Him rewarding your efforts with something far more valuable than anything this world can offer, inner peace. So if you've started to feel that doing the right thing brings you calm, if your heart settles when you obey, even if it's still hard sometimes, then know this: you are being guided. That calm you feel isn't random, it's not a coincidence. It's a sign that Allah has chosen you to taste the peace that only comes from closeness to Him. Cherish it, protect it, and keep walking that path even when no one sees, even when it's slow. Because obedience with peace is one of the clearest signs that your soul is finally aligned with the purpose it was created for. The seventh and perhaps most intimate sign that Allah is guiding you is this: your dua, your personal supplication, becomes more honest and more frequent. Not necessarily longer, not necessarily full of eloquent words, but real, unfiltered, from the heart. You see, when Allah draws you close, He opens the doors of communication between you and Him. Suddenly, you begin to find yourself speaking to Him, not just in formal moments of prayer, but in the quiet seconds between tasks, in your car, lying in bed, after a moment of sadness or a sudden joy. You start saying things like, Ya Allah, help me, or Ya Allah, you know what's in my heart, or Ya Allah, I'm tired, but I'm trying. This kind of dua is different. It's not just a list of requests, it's a conversation. It's raw, it's sometimes whispered through tears, sometimes spoken in a silent, broken voice. And it's not always about asking for something in the dunya. It becomes more about connection.